Hi everyone, Andy here at Spymaster Gaming. Welcome back to the channel and a very warm welcome if it's your first time joining us. In today's video, I'm going to be using the rule set Grimdark Future Firefight in order to create a scenario for some of the most famous Imperial Guard characters in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, Gaunt Ghosts. Now, the Ghosts have their own rules for Kill Team and in 40k as well, but I feel looking at them, those rules don't really do them justice and allow them to perform how I think they should perform as stealth specialists. So I have built a small force using the Grimdark Future Firefight rule set to pair up with the new Gaunt's Ghost models from Games Workshop. My opponent, Sam, is going to be controlling a Chaos Force, and together we are going to be playing out the last chapters of First and Only, the first book in the Gaunt's Ghost novel series. Now, the battle that we are going to be conducting will take place on the planet of Menezoid Epsilon, where Gaunt and his ghost stumble upon a standard template constructor for the Men of Iron. Now, for those of you who know your Warhammer 40k, Men of Iron basically brought about a Dark Age purely because of their artificial intelligence, and then ever since they were quelled, quashed, whatever, humanity decided not to go down the AI route, hence why we have the likes of servitors and other nasty things which still have human sort of interfaces rather than anything 100% AI. So Gaunt and his ghosts stumble upon this STC and decide to destroy it for the benefit of humanity, but there are forces at work to try and keep it producing Men of Iron. So without further ado, I will go into an overview of what the objectives are. Planet Menezoid Epsilon. Status Chaos Occupied. Ghost objective destroy the STC or force the Chaos Warband to rout. Chaos objective save the STC or force the Ghosts to rout. Hazards. The STC will produce a Man of Iron at the beginning of each turn on the roll of a 5 or 6. Only one Man of Iron can be active at one time. It will use AI rules to target the nearest model. Hazards. The Imperial Agent Fereyd will start control under the Ghosts. At turn 3, he will switch to be controlled by Chaos to represent him being controlled by the sinister Inquisitor Haldane, trying to prevent the STC from being destroyed. The STC will be considered destroyed if 2 or more Ghosts are within 3 inches of it by the end of turn 4. Critical hits and extra actions are in effect. Now, from an army perspective, I am going to be using the Feudal Elite list from the Army Forge. This, I felt, just embodied the Ghosts really well. They have better defense than the Human Defense Force models, so it represents them being a bit more stealthy with their Tanith cloaks. Really good defense across the board there, with the exception of Bragg, because he is a big target, so it makes sense for him to have a defense 4. I've opted to give Gaunt and Kolbeck the Ballistics Console upgrade, which basically improves the shooting by 1, shooting quality by 1 for any models within 12 inches. Gaunt's also got an energy sword to represent his chain sword. Other things of note: Sniper Larkin was given a sniper rifle, as he should be, and Bragg's been given a heavy machine gun, and I love the fact that his quality is 5, which is worse than everyone else, which really gives him the earned moniker of try again. And he's got 3 wounds as well, as he's a big guy. Not a very numerous list, only 6 models, and it's going to be interesting to see how they go up against Sam's list, which has 7. So he's opted to use the War Brothers list, which is supposed to be like Khorne, really, which makes sense, as a lot of the Chaos troops that the Ghosts go up against are sort of aligned to Khorne. Tough list. I don't want to be getting into melee combat with them, especially those Berserkers. Most of them have got Frenzy or Furious, which bolsters their melee attack capacity. But they are only defense 3, which is nice, so they should be able to go down with a couple of well-placed shots. From the sort of hazards and the AI perspective, the Man of Iron is represented by a Prime Master stat line, giving it the auto rifle and an energy fist as well, so really neither of us want to be getting into combat with it because it could break people quite easily. And for Fereyd, I've used a Storm Leader. Makes sense if he's sort of a Imperial agent. with plasma pistol and an energy sword with take aim as well, which basically gives +1 shooting. So it'd be up to us to make use of him in the turns that we both control him. And that's it. So let's go into turn 1. And here we have my ghosts and Sam's war disciples, ready to take on the board and fight for the central standard template constructor on the pedestal there, with a good array of scattered terrain and scenery for us to duck behind and hope that we can survive the fight. Deployment and deploying. I roll to see if a man of iron comes onto the table on turn 1. I only score a 2, so he doesn't. I then decide to move Larkin first for my first activation of turn 1 into cover with a clear shot at Sam's leader behind the pipes at the far end of the board. I get the shot off, but unfortunately for me, even with the armor piercing, I don't do any wounds and the leader remains intact. In retaliation, Sam decides to go to the different flank and move his heavy bolter up into cover to try and shoot at Bragg. A bit of heavy on heavy action. Bragg does have cover, so it's -1 to Sam's hitting, and unfortunately for me, he does get a shot through. I save it, or try to save it rather, and Bragg, he's a big target, and unfortunately for me, on turn 1, Bragg takes a wound, going down to 2. Not the best start, but he's got 2 more wounds, so I'm not that worried at this point. My next activation, I decide to go back to my right side and move Kolbeck up into cover just in front of Larkin. He is going to be acting as a buff for those around him with his ballistics console skill, improving their shooting, so I want him front and center so that they can all get that buff. Sam's moved his bolter into the cover there, who can get a shot off at Korbeck. And unfortunately for me, he hits, and with the armor piercing again, I fail it, and Korbeck goes to 2 wounds as well. So really not a good start for me here. I think that I'm going to press my advantage on the right, so I move Scout Sergeant McCall up into cover to see if he can have a shoot at the guy, the bolter, who's just shot. I try to shoot, and he's outside of Corbeck's range of the ballistic skill. Unfortunately, I've done myself an injustice there, and he fails the shot, so the bolter is safe in the crater. Sam then moves his assault troop, one of his berserkers, up the flank, and I then retaliate by moving Rawn up next to Korbeck. I want to protect Korbeck as much as possible as he's taken that wound now, so I try and shoot at that bolter in the crater. And lucky for me, with the buff from Korbeck, the bolter gets taken out. Sam rolls to see if he's wounded, gets a 5, adds the 1 for the wound, and it becomes a 6, so he's gone, which is a nice bit of retaliation. So well done, Rawn, there. He's going to get some experience from that. Then, following that, Sam decides to push on the left again. He's got, he moves his warlord to the center, into the barricade there, which is something I didn't think he would do. I move Fereyd up out into the open because I'm hoping that Sam will shoot at him. Thematically, they don't know that he will turn to chaos yet, so I'm hoping he will be a viable target. Sam's just moved the flamer to support his leader up. I move Gaunt behind the barricade there, full 12 so he can't shoot, and then Sam moves another berserker into the center by the STC. That leaves me with Bragg. I move him up, and hopefully I'm going to return some fire at the heavy bolter. And lucky for me, I get a critical hit. We check to see on the table what it does, and it's a master shot, which means that I'll score. He doesn't get to save for his roll, and it adds an additional wound to the roll as well, which for me means he gets a 5, which means he's stunned into the next turn. And that's pretty much it for the turn. So some wounds taken. I've taken one of Sam's out of action. Not too bad. Not too bad. At the start of turn 2, we roll to see if the Man of Iron comes on, and with a roll of a 6, he does. We assign directions on the plateau to see where he'll stand when he deploys, and unfortunately for Sam, he's facing Sam's end of the board and his troops, which means he will likely engage with them. For the first activation of turn 2, it's over to me, and I decide to use Fereyd for his last hurrah before he gets handed over to Sam in turn 3 when he gets corrupted. So I move him up within pistol distance of Sam's leader and try to put his plasma pistol to good use. Unfortunately for me, even with a good quality, it doesn't do anything. So Fereyd is, he's pretty much dead to me now. He's being handed over. I don't care what happens to him. Sam moves up his berserker on the right flank to target Nicole, but he's just out of range, so can't do anything. Then I try to press the advantage against Sam's leader with Larkin, try to shoot, succeed in shooting, but unfortunately don't score any wounds, which is turning into a bit of a trend for Larkin. Then Sam decides to play thematically here. He says that they wouldn't know that Fereyd's been corrupted at this point, so they just see him as a normal Imperial. So he uses his leader to charge round and engage Fereyd in melee combat. So hats off to Sam for playing the game properly and not trying to use Fereyd as an advantage. So well done, Sam. 3 attacks with his close combat weapon. Like I say, I am not very invested in what happens with Fereyd now. He can try and survive this, but I don't really care. Sam manages to score a couple of hits, one of which is a critical hit. And we look at the table, consult it, and even with the critical hit, Fereyd somehow manages to shake off both of the hits. Not too bad, so he may actually prove useful for me here with a final swing of his sword. 2 attacks, and somehow he manages to deal a wound to the leader. So, thanks, I guess. Just don't hurt me in the next 2 rounds. That's all I can say. So, with my turn then, I decide what I need to do is try and work on this right flank. The lead is still a threat, and I really don't want that berserker coming at me down the right side. So I move McCall 6 inches. Unfortunately, that also moves him outside of Corbeck's ballistics console buff. So he's going to be hitting on 4s, targeting that berserker behind the pipes there. But unfortunately for me, doesn't hit him. So McCall's done nothing. Sam moves back to the other side of the board, looking at Commissar Gaunt there behind the barricade, and moves up another berserker to try and scare him. He can't charge him, but he's hoping that I will be drawn into combat, so I steer clear of the objective, but I'm not going to fall for it. So instead, I use Bragg, his 3 shots, and his buff from Gaunt. The cover that the berserker's in means that Bragg's still hitting on 5s, but I try my luck, and fortunately for me, managed to get a critical. And when we calculate that off the table, it's enough to stun the berserker. So Bragg's done quite well so far, stunning 2 people. I don't think he should be called try again in this game. He's doing rather well. So Sam then decides to put his 3rd berserker into defensive stance because the Man of Iron is closest to him. That basically means that the Man of Iron's melee quality will be reduced by 2. I then decide to move Corbeck up to engage Sam's leader, try to shoot at him again. I really want to take this guy out, get the hit, but unfortunately it's blocked, so Corbeck hasn't done anything there. In retaliation, Sam moves his flamer up and decides to split fire between Fereyd and Corbeck. Now, because Fereyd and Corbeck are within 3 inches of one another, he can split the fire from the same weapon as long as it's equal. So 3 shots into Fereyd, 3 into Corbeck. The 3 for Fereyd don't hit, so he escapes somehow. And then for Corbeck, 2 hits go through. When we calculate the damage, it's not good for Corbeck. He's already suffered a wound in the first turn of the game, obviously. So it actually means that he ends up stunned. Not ideal, because now he is the buff for the rest of the guys on that right flank. And if he goes down, if someone engages him in melee or shoots at him now, I'm buggered, really. So I see what else I can do. I've only really got Rawn left to activate on that flank, so I go after the Flamer, try and take him out before he can do any more damage, get the shot off, and fortunately for me, manage to stun the Flamer, which means he's not going to be able to do anything next turn, which is great. So thanks for that, Rawn. Just one model left to activate for me now, and that is Gaunt. I move him up closer to the objective, but not just a move. I try and get a cheeky shot off at the wounded Berserker, but unfortunately for me, it doesn't hit. Then finally, we have to activate the Man of Iron. He moves towards Sam's Berserker in defensive stance, which means instead of hitting on 3s, now he's hitting on 5s. He gets 2 hits through, and unfortunately for Sam's Berserker, it is actually enough to see him off and knock him out off the board. So the Man of Iron's already very, very scary to face, and then makes a consolidatory move of 3 inches next to the next available target, which is Sam's Flamer, and that is turn 2. That Fereyd hands over to Sam. He decides not to activate him first, however. He wants to continue pushing on that right flank, seeing McCall as the challenge, so moves up his Berserker to engage him in close combat. Now, with the Frenzy and Furious, it means that he's hitting with 3 attacks and armor piercing 1. Not good, even though McCall's armed with the energy sword equivalent. If he can't survive this combat, he's not going to strike back. Unfortunately for me, he doesn't survive the combat and ends up being stunned. Not good for McCall. Then for my activation of my first activation of turn 3, I move Gaunt up to within claiming distance of the objective and try and shoot the Berserker who's still stunned. And this time I get the shot off and he can't save it as he's stunned, so I take him out of the game. Then Sam decides to use his heavy bolter, heavy machine gun at the back, to shoot at Gaunt, and he scores a couple of hits. We then have a brief intermission where I actually send part of the terrain and Sergeant McCall flying off the table, which I will now show you. Oh no!
Hits. Gets past this. Yep.
McCall's down.
Down.
Yeah, he's on somewhere.
I will do the same again.
Yeah,
He's here.
Sorry. Missed.
Oh,
I've only got
is that one of those
seven moves,
you don't want to step and hear that crunch, do you?
There we are. So I'll stop the filming for that. So, recovering McCall from the ground, I resolve the combat with Gaunt, and unfortunately for me, he suffers 2 wounds, goes down to 1 wound, not ideal. I then retaliate with Bragg, wanting to protect Gaunt's rear, so I move him up to target the leader. Being thematic and all that, I don't know that Fereyd is turned at this point as he hadn't activated, so I shoot past him to aim at the leader and score another wound, taking him down to 1 wound left. Bragg has done amazingly so far. I'm really surprised, but I'm glad that he's doing well. Then Sam decides to use his leader before he gets taken out of action and engages Corbeck. Now, because Corbeck is already stunned, there's no need for combat resolution. Basically, Corbeck just gets removed from combat as a casualty because he can't fight back. So Corbeck really didn't do much that game. Bit disappointed in him, but well, hopefully he'll survive. Now, in retaliation, I put Larkin on Overwatch. Now, if Sam moves his leader to engage Bragg or Gaunt in turn 4, I can have a cheeky shot at him with the sniper. So, yeah, can avoid him doing that. Then, basically, Sam doesn't have many options left, so he decides to move Fereyd up onto the platform to try and engage Gaunt with his pistol, putting the plasma pistol at the back of his head, like the cowardly traitor that he is. So, shoots, misses, Gaunt survives, fortunately for me. I move Rawn up to try and get a shot off at the Berserker on the right flank, who is stunned. Doesn't manage to... not stunned, sorry, he's already activated against McCall. I try to shoot him and take him out and fail, which means that next turn he's going to take McCall out most likely if I can't save him. Then the final thing that for Sam to do is move the Man of Iron up, and he engages with the Flamer, who's already stunned, taking him out, and that is the end of turn 3. He moves him forward to engage Rawn next, which I don't want him to do. Going into turn 4, Sam decides to press the advantage with Fereyd and engage Colonel Commissar Gaunt in close combat. They've both been equipped for energy swords in their profiles, so both 2 attacks, -1 AP and rending. Sam gets 1 hit through, but luckily for me, Gaunt blocks it and then gets to swing back with his sword. Unfortunately for me, does a wound to Fereyd, so Gaunt has faced down his friend turned enemy and held on to the objective. So well done, Colonel Commissar. Then for my first activation of the turn, I decide that Gaunt needs some support up there. So I move Bragg up and then aim at Sam's heavy machine gunner, who's hid behind the pipes the whole game. And 3 shots get a critical hit, and it's enough to stun the heavy machine gunner and take him out of action for the rest of the game. And he's no longer a threat on that side of the board. Now, Sam then decides to move his berserker up, engage McCall, automatically taking him out of action as he was stunned from the prior turn. So McCall is out. Then I have 2 activations left, Rawn and Larkin. I decide to move Rawn up onto the platform as well to turn around and get a shot off at Sam's leader, who's hiding in the ruins. I don't have much hope for this, but somehow the dice gods are on my side, and Rawn gets the hit through, and it's actually enough to knock out the leader. So Rawn has done really well as well, taking out the bolter in turn 1, and taking out the leader in the final turn. So well done, Rawn. Then for my final activation, I decide whether to move Larkin up and engage with the Man of Iron or Fereyd, but no, I decide I'm going to be petty and go on a vengeance shot on the Berserker for McCall. I get the hit, but it's not enough. He saves it. Then with the Man of Iron, his activation, he moves up to engage Rawn and stuns him. So at the end of the game, I have Bragg and Gaunt within 3 inches of the standard template constructor, which means that the Ghosts win. And that was a really enjoyable game and well played by Sam. So there we have it. Just like the end of First and Only, the Ghosts managed to destroy the standard template constructor and stop the production of the Men of Iron. Some slight differences there, obviously, as you should expect, because these things are never going to be completely book accurate because we're relying on ourselves rather than Dan Abnett. So Fereyd survived, and I obviously lost Corbeck and McCall to the fighting. Now, from an experience perspective, Rawn has done the best in this game. He's 1 XP away from being able to level up and gain a skill potentially. Gaunt is on 3 XP, so 2 away, and the rest of the Ghosts have done okay as well, with the exception of Corbeck and McCall, who don't get any XP as they were wounded. So, Sam's team has also gained some XP. His leader is on 2 XP, I believe, and his surviving ones will also take an additional experience point each as well. So we rolled for casualties. Neither of us suffered any casualties, so we can enter into the next game with full rosters. The only difference is that as Sam lost, he's earned an extra 30 points to spend. So his total now for his warband is 330 points, whereas mine is only 310. So he could potentially hire another warrior, to fight. So I may be a bit outnumbered. If you've enjoyed this, we're going to be doing some more of the Gaunt's Ghost books. Following on from this one, the next one will be Ghostmaker, creating another scenario to mimic the end of that book as well. So if you have enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing and ringing the bell for notifications. Trying to grow the channel, and anything that you can do to help will be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much, and I'll see you on the next one.